Hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we will be talking about how is to dive blindly in the Bangka Strait. For that I will tell you the story of a very interesting shipwreck in that place. So let's dive into it. The Banka Strait is the strait that separates the island of Banka from the island of Sumatra in Indonesia. It has been used for many centuries as a waterway which is very busy with naval traffic for commerce and for fisheries and for everything. So it is logic that it would have plenty of shipwrecks in that strait. The main problem with that strait is that the Palembang River, it puts water all the time. It's a very big river and it has a big flow of water with mud that make this strait completely full of mud in the water column. So it is very difficult to dive there. You can't see anything, and this was the main problem with this wreck. We have mentioned this wreck in another episode, the difficult shipwrecks to explore, precisely because of this handicap that this particularity that it has. The water is so bad that you can't see anything. Well, the information about this shipwreck, it has also a little bit of a difference with other shipwrecks that we found in Indonesia. It didn't come only from fishermen. It came from a group of fishermen, but at the same time they were working with some local divers that were exploring for tin. The island of Banka is very well known for the richness in tin, the mineral. There are muds in that island, and in the Strait of Banka there is mud with very high content of tin. So they dive with very basic equipment. There's really something very artisanal, and it is impressive. They dive, for instance, from a very small boat, or even sometimes from land in the very coast where this mud is very abundant. They dive with the compressor, a low pressure compressor with a hose, and they breathe that air, and they put the hose in their mouth and they go down there and they work there for hours. I'm talking about the same compressor. It is the compressor that you use to fill your car tires.
They just use something that it's able to pump.
Exactly, to pump air, but imagine there is no filtering of this air.
Of course.
It is not like, let's call it breathable air. It's not air you should breathe.
It's not complying with any health and safety anything, I can imagine, yes.
At all. But these brave divers, they stay down there for hours. Obviously, it's a very dangerous activity because they are not formed in the physiology of the diving, so they don't care about bends or dive diseases. So it's unfortunately very high risk activity what they do. But this combination of, let's call them tin miners, with the fishermen, that they were looking for good spots within the Bangka Strait, and they came across this place where they start finding porcelain items. They came to me. I was working in Banka, so my headquarters were our expedition ship. The port calls were to Banka, and I got friends with the fishermen, and we were talking, and they say, we can show you a place where we have found porcelain. I'm laughing because when they took us there, I went there first. It was in 2007. We didn't have the big ship. We have a small ship with a very small team. So we went, two of us in a little boat, to check on the place, because I didn't imagine how difficult it would be to dive in that place. I asked them logically how deep it is, how far from the coast, the normal questions. And it was 12, 13 meters, which is shallow. It's great for diving, no problem. It was, a little bit far away from the coast, about, I don't know, probably 30 miles. miles. So it's a little bit far away from the coast, but it's far away from the coast of Banka and very close to the coast of Sumatra because it's a strait. You are far from one place, but you are close to the other. And we arrived there and we jump in the water because they say it's here. A colleague and me, we jumped both of us in the water. It was incredible how after 3, 4, 5 meters you couldn't see anything. It was black, but I mean black. I always made a joke with him because you could close your eyes, you could open your eyes and there would be no difference. And there would be no difference. You could really spare your mask. You don't need a mask to dive there. So we arrive on the seabed, obviously just touching the seabed, and this sensation of not seeing anything is something I don't really like. I prefer...
What? You don't like claustrophobia or lack of visibility?
Well, I spend my life diving,
but you can see.
But exactly, I prefer, it's seeing what I touch.
Yeah, it would be nice.
And we arrived down there, we put our hands in the seabed, which was mud mainly, and you could, by touching it, you could differentiate what was porcelain and what was, for instance, dead coral, because there is dead coral there. So there was a time in which those water were not that murky and the sunlight go through it and coral grew there.
From the beginning of you talking about this, what do you think makes those waters so murky? Is it the junction of the fresh water joining the salt water, or just the geography itself of the location?
I think the main, aside from the natural geography of the place that is muddy between the islands, aside from that, yes, I think the Palembang River, which is so big, the amount of murky water that brings from land and put it into the strait, I think is the main reason why the water is so murky. I mean,
see that there's so much suspension in the water.
That's it, because I think also we didn't spend so much time there to physically see it, but everyone said that in the season of the rains, where obviously the river will bring much more water, it is even worse. I don't know how it could be worse, but they say so. They say, no, this is a normal.
This is good visibility.
That is a normal condition.
You're being picky.
Yeah, don't be picky. Well, we dove that first day, my friend and I, and you could tell by touching, because porcelain has this beautiful characteristic that it doesn't get too encrusted with sea growth or animals. So you could feel like that you're touching glass. So even in the mud, you could feel this polished surface that will tell you, okay, it's not a coral, it's not a rock, it's not a piece of wood, it is porcelain. So
it's smooth.
Yeah, very smooth. We started going around in the mud, touching, and listen, I'm touching, but at the same time, I'm thinking that the next moment that I will move my hand, it will be fetched by something.
Nope, nope. Simply, no. It's too dark. Your mind is already thinking about too many monsters. No, simply no.
I have to be honest, I was terrified. It was one of the few wrecks I really felt uncomfortable diving there. But on top of it, we are touching each other because we don't want to separate, and we had a line. Well, we prepared the dive for some conditions. We didn't expect to be that dark, but still, you with the experience, you can adapt your dive so you don't lose your body. We are close together. We have a certain time to dive that you cannot control because you cannot see your watch or your dive computer. You cannot see it. So obviously we dove less time than we planned, because there was a moment in which I said, let's go up. But we were going down there and we started hearing a very ominous sound, like whoa, 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 something. But it might have been terrifying in any circumstance, but in that one was really scary. Was really scary. And I grabbed my friend's hand. We signaled somehow with the fingers that we need to come up. We went up, and already in the surface, waiting for the little boat to come and pick us up. I asked him, did you hear that? And he said, yeah, sure. Should have been a boat that went over us and you can hear the engine. So we went into the little boat. We asked the boatman, who was on top of us for 40 minutes, did any other boat pass nearby? The guy said, no. no, I have been along here all the time. But were you playing with the engine or something? No, 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 no. I was just tied here and engine was off. So between him and me, that they were the only two in the water, we started making an internal joke that, this growling monster that was down there. So we recovered some of the porcelain that we touched. We had our bags with us because we couldn't see them down there. I mean, I couldn't know if they were Chinese porcelain or if they were modern or there was anything, because you could not see anything. So to see them and to photograph them and to study them, you need to bring them up. So we brought a bag with plenty, because it was full of porcelain, plenty of artifacts. We took them to the boat. We started making photos and analyzing the artifacts. We realized that it was late Ming porcelain, meaning probably between 1610 to 1650, from the late days of the Ming dynasty. It was very beautiful. It has some peculiar motifs like spotted horses. It was a beautiful porcelain in that horrible place. So we decided that we shouldn't continue in 2007 with this little team and almost no means continue to disturb the site, and we would come back later with a bigger ship with better means and with a magnetometer. So we did that in 2010. So in 2009 we went back to that place with the bigger ship, with the magnetometer, with a larger team, and the first thing we did, knowing that you cannot see anything down there, was to pass the magnetometer in the entire area and the side scan sonar to try to get a picture of the dispersion of the objects and therefore plan a dive according to the image you get. The side scan sonar was not very useful because apparently that wreck has been flattened out by either the current or the dragging nets over the site, but it didn't have this heel of porcelain that we have seen in other wrecks. So it was flattened out. You could see the difference in the side scan sonar, in the seabed. You could see the difference in the texture, but you cannot see...
Like a big hill.
Yeah, you cannot recognize the big heel of porcelain that is so common in other wrecks. But the magnetometer gave us a very good image of the magnetic field of the site. We see some peaks where obviously some ferromagnetic objects would be. So we made a plan and we start diving. We prepared those dives very carefully because you need to prepare the ropes. Now that we knew that it was not possible to see, we have to prepare the ropes with different knots, like a knot in each meter, and you... Yeah, and then you go, 1 knot is 1 meter, 2 knots is 2 meters, so you can locate yourself. You can know where you are within the wreck, because we put the lines and, we prepared the site very well to go. And we started working and trying to collect porcelain and try to excavate, and obviously we didn't tell the other divers that there was a monster growling down there.
Obviously, why
would I say that? I mean, maybe it's gone, but no, it was there. And it was already like a legend within our expedition ship that this crazy animal was down there watching us, because nobody has been attacked, nobody has been damaged by this monster, but it was there certainly, and it was telling us it was there. For a moment, we even considered the possibility of finding a dive club or something that would have blind people, because it would have been great. The people who cannot see, they are very good with every other senses. So what we were trying to figure out down there for them would have been very easy. So we tried, but we didn't find any blind people dive school, for instance, which I have been thinking about that a lot. If it doesn't exist, it should be created.
Totally, because it's a very interesting activity that you would think that for that disability it makes you not qualified, but it can be so useful for these type of very difficult access or complicated wreck sites. Anyone that has done a dive with impaired vision probably would have been 10 times better and more proficient at this role than even you guys with so many years of experience, because it's potentially, I imagine, a very different way of doing the task
Oh, it is completely
know?
different between ourselves. We call it the braille dive
Yeah.
because you have to guide yourself by touching
Yeah.
something in the water when you're diving and you are excavating. I mean, you touch the seabed the least possible. You
Yeah.
touch the seabed when you have to. So
Yeah.
in this one, you have to touch the seabed
Constantly. Yeah.
to know that you are there to start with.
Totally.
So I already make the story of Yuri with this coconut that he thought that was a
Yes.
head because it has hairs and everything. So the entire 3 or 4 weeks of diving in that wreck, it was full of this kind of stories because you cannot imagine how many different things happen to a diver who cannot see, that is scared, that we have to plan the dives in a way. The diver down there cannot control its time. As I mentioned, that we realize you cannot control your time. You can put a beep, you can put an alarm, but we decide to control the time from outside. So the next diver that have to go in the water will go exactly in the time that the other diver has to come up. So it will replace the diver by touching him and tell him, okay, I'm here, so now you can go. There was a signal code for the diver to know that you're touching him, so his dive is finished. So it was quite fun to organize this kind of dives. On top of it, this wreck started giving us very curious surprises. For instance, one of the things that gave a signal in the magnetometer was a cargo of woks made of iron. But I'm talking about woks, big woks.
Like industrial, like serious.
Yeah, but
walks.
serious woks. And they were in a stack. They were stored together that you could see. Okay, they were all fused already by the concretion and the oxidization of the woks, which were made of iron.
Yeah.
But there was a big mass of these woks. So we started excavating around the woks, and there was plenty of porcelain. There was some porcelain also attached to the woks. And within the area of the woks, we recovered a little stack. I said little because it was like this thick, of copper trays. And these copper trays, we brought the stack up completely. We separate one of the trays that was obviously in better condition. We clean it on board to see if there was any marks or any, all artifacts that you find in a shipwreck, which you don't know what shipwreck it is. It is very important to look for marks or for indication of country or year or provenance.
Yeah.
And in the case of a copper tray, it was also in such a good condition because the ship was apparently around 1650. So it was many years ago. And this copper was in very nice conditions, as good as when cleaned. We realized that it has different marks and different ornaments. And within these ornaments, there were some swastikas. The swastika that everyone knows was infamous swastika here. And we were amazed because that is something that strikes you, because we here in the West have always identified swastika with the Nazis and with this whole awful story. But the symbol of the swastika has existed for more than 3,000 years, 4,000 years. It has been used in almost every culture with different meanings because, there is the clockwise swastika and the counterclockwise. And it has different meanings, but in most of these cultures, the Chinese, the Indian, they use it as a symbol of power, health, good luck. So it's a positive symbol. Prosperity.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we were in Bali, we were also a little bit surprised of seeing these banners in the streets and the swastikas.
Yeah, and everywhere, exactly. And there's nothing more chilled, Buddhist, loving and accepting and celebrating than Bali. Like in Indonesia, like in my experience, the way that they see religion is definitely quite chilled. So seeing the swastika was like,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, but also it got us to learn that,
Totally.
yes, for them it means something good, not bad. So that was one interesting thing within the copper trays. It has these swastikas. Obviously, that led to a research on the copper. We didn't recover any of the woks, but there were plenty of porcelain pieces that also help us shrinking the potential date of sinking of the boat. We stay excavating the wreck. It was about 1 month or so, together with the Ministry of Culture officials that were with us. us because that was a very interesting find. And I can assume that everyone in the team was super happy the day that I say, okay, we have enough data already, we don't need to keep on diving in this place. Me first.
You were the first one to be like, nope.
Okay.
Not for me here.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Look, I'm making the video and I'm sure there would be commercial divers that do this and they work in water processing plants and all these really difficult environments that I would think, oh, Alex, come on, man, this is like a normal diving. You don't need to see to dive. Okay, I agree, but I do underwater archaeology and that is not a situation that is too common for me. So I remember that wreck as a very challenging wreck, and it was not only for me but for everyone in my team that you talk to them, they would tell you that the Bangka Strait wreck was very challenging is the word, and it has reward because also you are collecting or you are excavating objects and you have no clue where you are coming up with. So it's a little bit like a surprise when you arrive on deck and you open your bag and you start taking artifacts out. It's incredible how exciting that could be.
There is an entire side of the internet that it's called opening mystery boxes.
Well,
So yes, it's very, no, like literally,
Well.
it's a very human curiosity fulfilling activity to be like, oh, what is it that I'm gonna get this time? So I can see that happening.
well,
with you guys.
exactly that is what happened. It was like a mystery bag because
Yeah.
and sometimes you put things inside the bag and you try to guess down there. This should be a picture or this should be a vase.
Totally.
And you want to see if you were right
Of
when you
course.
get on board. So it was at the same time a very challenging wreck to study,
But very rewarding.
but very rewarding and very fun because also people suffer during the dive, but after the dive, the feeling of relaxation and of accomplishment, it filled the team. The team was very happy being able to overcome these fears that you have since you are a kid of the dark and the unknown. To have to overcome that every day, twice a day, you feel good when you do that. And by the end of the expedition, we also had the chance to discover the mystery about this monster that was stalking us during all that month. And it was one day that, for an incredible reason, waters were slightly cleaner than the other days, so you had this little visibility of about 30 centimeters or so, which for us was like a party because it was the first time that you could see the seabed. And we discovered a fish. It's called, I think, lizard fish, which is flat and long, and it's a small fish. It's something like this, and it was grunting, was laying on the seabed really close to us. It was obviously very displeased that we were messing with his house and his environment, and he was complaining all the time and making this horrible noise that we all thought that was something much more dangerous than this little fish that was really upset for us being there so long time. So I wanted to share this story with you because for us it was a special wreck. We really remember that wreck as a different one, and I wanted to share it with you so maybe you guys also have similar experiences, because I know that diving in inhibited visibility conditions is not anything new. And if you have experience, please leave it in the comment section, and if you liked the video, please give me a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it, and let's keep on diving.